elected officials and representatives of organizations and agencies. Um, and welcome to the public watching. And a hearty Yamhill County welcome to U.S. Senator from Oregon, Jeff Merkley. And before I give the floor over to you, Senator Merkley, I just want to go over some ground rules in that if you have a question, both audience and panelists for Senator Merkley, send me a question through the chat feature. And as soon as Senator Merkley is done making whatever statement he wants to make, then we'll go to questions if we have time. And we have 15 minutes for the senator, and then we'll go to our normal roundtable questions. Senator, welcome, and tell us what you would like to talk with your constituents about.
Thanks so much, Commissioner. And thank you all for getting on the call. I'm just doing one conference call or Zoom meeting after another, trying to spread information around the state and connect people. We have been hit so hard by the health crisis, followed by an economic implosion, and just there's tremendous uncertainty and anxiety. We now have a massive federal bill that has to be implemented, and so there's huge numbers of questions and uncertainty exactly how that will be implemented. So trying to share provisions, and as the details are laid out by the federal government, we'll be trying to educate people on those details. We want Oregon to be at the front of the line in making application for resources. The legislation we just passed has a significant amount of help for local governments. And it includes over $250 billion that directed specifically to responding to the challenges of the virus. And then it has $150 billion in stabilization aid, sustainability aid to the states and local governments. That $150 billion, let me focus on that for a moment. That essentially, we're about 1% of the national population, so that would be in the range of $1.25 to $1.5 billion we would expect to come to Oregon, depending on exactly how the formulation is put together. It primarily goes to the governor, with the exception that cities over 500,000, so for Oregon that's only Portland, get a direct allocation. The basic premise was that 55% would stay with the state government, and then the balance of the funds, minus what goes to the cities, would be used to help local government. That the way the bill was actually written, it's going to basically have a huge amount of flexibility for how governors do this. So it's very important that our county governments be in the conversation with the state government on how funds get distributed. So that's the stabilization side. On the specific COVID-19 response side, there's community development block grant money, there's K-12 school money, there's higher education money, there's billions for children and families, including assistance to child care centers. The small business side is one that I had a lot of engagement on, and the goal was to both have a robust unemployment insurance strategy for businesses that had to furlough or shut down, but then also have really substantial help for small businesses to stay open and keep their teams together. And that piece provides that as a small business, and small business in Oregon terms sounds very large, up to 500 folks qualify for this program, the government will pay the payroll expenses for 2 months. And they'll pay it based on a similar time period in 2019. They take the average expenditures during the year of 2019, multiply that times 2.5. The sense is, another way of saying that is 100% of your payroll expenses for 2 months plus another 25% of your expenses over 2 months of your payroll expenses to cover other expenses like rent, supply line provisions, utilities, etc. Basically, how to keep a small business employed and people on board for 2 months. The hope is that this will be less stressful for employees because they won't go through unemployment and they won't go through figuring out how to replace their benefits, their healthcare benefits, and so forth, go through COBRA. It's also beneficial to the small businesses because if they once you shut down, it's so hard to reassemble everything. And if your employees are still on board and ready to go back to work as the market starts to open back up, you're in a much better position, and the whole economy will hopefully return more quickly. So it's hopefully a win-win. There's other small business programs that I'll just mention very briefly. There's a $10,000 grant. If you, by that way, the first program is called the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP. If you don't do PPP, there's a $10,000 grant that can be secured to help with expenses to stay open. There is additional lending that's possible. The federal government will pick up your SBA loan payments, existing or new loans, for 6 months. And that's actually compatible with PPP. That can be done simultaneously with PPP. I'm missing the last the 50% tax credit. That is also an alternative to the PPP, is a 50% employee retention tax credit. The details on that aren't worth my going into now, but let me say I put a lot of information on my website, merkley.senate.gov/Main Street, trying to put out that small business information. Jake on my team, Jake Okenberg, is serving as point person. 501c3s are eligible for this as well. So feel free to have businesses check my website. Also check in with Jake on additional questions. And there'll be a lot of additional questions. One can apply for that PPP through a bank or a credit union, but they're not ready to take applications yet. So we're hoping the administration can roll this out within the week. We were told initially they'd have it up and running by the end of this week, and then we've heard it might be an additional 2 or 3 weeks, which would be a disaster, an absolute disaster if people can't apply for these grants to stay open, because it'd be having to make payroll, and they'll just lay people off instead. Anyway, that's a quick revision or a quick overview of some of those factors. And I think the best thing to do is, in the short time we have, is turn this over to all of you.
Okay, thank you very much, Senator. So I have one, go ahead. I have one question here from Representative Gomberg to get us started, and that is, for people who haven't filed their taxes in the previous year, such as retirees whose income is lower, will they still, what's the mechanism for them to get a stimulus check? Do they need to file taxes in order to get that?
Oh, that's a question I haven't yet had, Representative Gomberg. Of course, you'd ask me something I don't know the answer to. But the advantage of doing these gatherings is that with each question, we're researching it. So I'll have my team research this and get back to you. So I've got to make a note on it.
So I also responded to it in the chat because I obsessively read legislation in my free time in the evening, because why not, right? And what I saw was that retirees and other low-income filers who would not typically be required to file do need to file a simple return in order to be eligible, but it wouldn't create a tax liability or anything like that. It's just a reporting of that filing, and that will generate it. And they have all the way through to the end of the year of December in order to do that filing and get that check.
Thank you, Beth. I appreciate that you're filling me in. And I don't think, is Jake on the line from my team? Don't see him.
Jake is not on, Senator. I can get that information over to him now.
Okay, great.
So
Stacy's on. Okay, great. Hey, okay, good. There's my team member. So Stacy's, can you make a note on that so we can follow up? Beth probably got the key information there, but I should make sure our team has this information for others as well.
And then a note that Stacy will be on after Senator leaves. So follow-up questions we can direct to her. So the next question, Senator, if you're ready, is where can we find info specifically on the $10,000 grant? And that one was, I believe, from Shannon Buckmaster at the Chehalis Valley Chamber. Yes.
So you can find information at my website, the Main Street provision. It's merkley.senate.gov/Main Street. And then if you find the details that you're like, well, I need details that aren't here, call Jake Okenberg on my team, or call Stacy, and Stacy can connect with Jake or figure it out. Stacy, why don't you introduce yourself? Stacy's my field rep, who's a point of contact for everybody in this part of the state.
Yeah, so I'm Senator Merkley's field representative. I'm based out of Salem, and I cover Yamhill County as well as some others. I know all of you, so feel free to reach out to me, and I'll send out contact information for Jake too.
Perfect. Thank you. So another question on the economic development front is from, I believe, from Abhishek Stone, who's an economic development person for us in the county, and that is, are there funds available for traded sector partners, manufacturers specifically, for retooling so they can start making emergency medical supplies?
Well, not specifically that I know of. So there weren't stimulus funds, but under the defense, so this might be a case where a company might want to ask the government to use the Defense Production Act because therefore there'd be a contract to pay them to do this, and that's a negotiated amount of money. There is certainly very generous loans available for businesses that essentially are subject to a 50% tax credit on the back end. So that's through the Fed 13.3 window. I would think there's a lot of little nooks and crannies in this bill. Let's check and see if there's other instruments, but I have a feeling they would require the federal government to kind of sign a contract of some sort to make it happen. I don't think you could just do it and then ask for reimbursement.
Okay, thank you, Senator. And I think that was a great question. That's one I've had running around in my head. The next question is from, oh, sorry.
Commissioner, what's the company that was interested? Because we would like to talk to them and facilitate if we can.
Abhishek, do you want to send me that as a message? Okay, thank you. And I'll get that to you. So the next question is from an audience member, and she's asking what kinds of help are available to sole proprietors, such as tattoo parlors, beauticians, folks like that?
Absolutely. So we really worked hard to have sole proprietors eligible both on the unemployment side and on the small business package side. So you can essentially seek funds to employ yourself for the next 2 months, even if you don't have work coming in the door, as part of this let's get through this together and stay employed strategy. We also, on the unemployment side, also eligible, and that unemployment funding is sufficient that for most of low income and middle income America, it will cover 100% of your normal income. So both programs are open, the unemployment side and the small business paycheck protection program.
Okay, great. And through Abhishek, she has some names, and we'll communicate those directly to Stacy, just to make sure that they all stay in place. Okay.
Well, and I'll tell you, it's so valuable to have companies that can produce any form of protective equipment or produce ventilators to be doing so. This is something we were pushing the administration to gear up 2 months ago. They were a little slow to do so, and I would say maybe a little slow is an understatement. We just don't know how fast this is going to progress. 2 weeks ago, if you look back to the previous 5 days, we were under 10 new cases a day, and most days it was 2 or 3. Now we're at an average of over 60 new cases a day. And so just 2 weeks later, if we have a 6-fold increase in the next 2 weeks, you can start to see the challenge we're facing. We hope the social distancing is going to start being reflected in a flattening of the new cases. And in which case, we'll be okay in Oregon in terms of not maxing out our healthcare system. As of this morning, we had about 35 people on ventilators. We had about 800 ventilators in the state, including 140 that I was worked to get from the strategic stockpile. But making equipment, we want to do everything we can to gear it up.
Okay, one last question. Oh, can we get one last question for the senator? And that one.
Yep, real quick.
Okay, and that one is, can we have Spanish language versions of the documents that are available on your mainstreet.org website be made available so that folks who Spanish is their primary language can access them?
That's a great idea. Let's try to do it.
Thank you so much. for
You're
joining
welcome.
us.
Thank you
Yes,
all.
and
We know we can get through to the other side. We've seen China now has virtually 0 new cases, but this is going to be tough. And even as we proceed to social distancing, it means that we might face a recurrence of this down the road, because if fewer of us have had the disease, fewer of us have immunity, then the chance for re-emergence exists. So we just know it's a path. We don't fully understand what shape it will take, but we've got to be in it together and support each other through it, and then restore our economy. So thank you for being community leaders, helping to make this happen as we figure it out. I will be collecting ideas for Corona 4, the next significant bill that I would anticipate we'll be debating in full. We're already collecting ideas. We'll debate in full 3 weeks from now, maybe pass it 4 weeks from now, or hopefully pass it. And so please channel your ideas through Stacy back to my team. Thank you all. Take care. And I think Stacy's staying on to continue the conversation, but I unfortunately am going from conversation to conversation.
Thank you, Senator. We trust you and your family and your whole team are doing well.
Thank you. Take care. Stay healthy.
yes, you too. All right, folks. I was going to ask for specific questions from everybody, but what I'd like to hear instead, while we have Representative Gomberg and Representative Noble on, is their thoughts on a special session and the COVID Economic Response Task Force or Committee. So can we go with Representative Noble first?
There we are. Yeah, unmuted. So thank you. And I want to he's gone, but I wanted to thank the senator for showing up. I think the special session, and I'm interested to hear what Representative Gomberg has to say too. I think we're looking at, as the senator mentioned, a lot of flexibility in this package. We want to see where this all settles so that we can identify where the gaps are. So I would expect a special session fairly soon, but we want to see, just like you do, where all of this funding is going, because we're looking at funding for hospitals, for education, individuals, small businesses, and then local governments. And what we want to do with state funding, not only funding from the federal government, but our own funding from our own general fund, to ensure that we're not duplicating effort, that it goes in the right place. So I guess I would defer to Representative Gomberg to see if he has a similar or different view, but from what I understand, that's kind of the approach we're taking now, to ensure that we're making the best use of our time and not duplicating effort.
Well, thank you, Ron. I'll remind people that you and I serve in different caucuses, so it's possible we're getting different messages. For the most part, I think we're getting similar messages. But let me back up for a second, because I think it's important to note that there's so much information coming at us right now. We've got federal steps that are being taken. We've got steps in the state of Oregon coming from the governor's office. We've got a possible legislative session, and we've got local action from cities and counties, particularly along the coast. So people are getting flooded with so many different orders and actions and proposals and benefit packages that I think, excuse me, they're having a great deal of challenges trying to sort it all out. Now, as I think all of you know, there's been a special joint committee that has been meeting for the last 10 days or so. A joint committee meaning that it is members of both the Senate and the House who have been meeting to put a series of proposals together for a possible special session. And those ideas have now been formulated into a series of, I believe, 4 bills, which should be available on OLIS, the Oregon Legislative Information System. So, Mayor, if you like reading legislation when you're trying to get to sleep at night, there's 4 more bills that you can delve into. And there is also a list of the different concepts that are encapsulated into those bills, which cover details like streamlining unemployment applications, prohibiting commercial or residential evictions, and also some proposed zoning changes that would affect homeless shelters. My coastal cities and counties are particularly interested in a section that frees up your use of transient lodging dollars to be used more broadly than the current statute provides. You'll remember that under the current statute, unless you're grandfathered in under a different rule, 70% of that money needs to be used for tourism promotion or tourism facilities. And one of the statute or proposed statutes says that you can use that money temporarily to also help businesses get back on their feet. Are we going to have a special session? I don't know. I think that there are plenty of people that would like us to have a special session. There's not a great deal of controversy over what we would do should we get in, but I don't know that there is yet agreement on getting us all there. And candidly, part of that is the concern about bringing as many as 90 people from all around the state into a confined space and following the constitutional requirements that they be on the floor when they vote. So there are a number of steps being contemplated on how we can creatively fulfill those obligations and still maintain necessary social distancing. I mean, to give you an example, I anticipate that I'll come into the Capitol, park my car in the basement, come up to my office and sit in my office until I'm called to the floor to vote, and they'll bring us down in small groups, leaving the voting period open for maybe 30 minutes instead of the typical 30 seconds. But trying to find a way to manage a special session is going to be interesting. But right now, no special session has been called. But take a look at the proposals that are in place, and you'll see what we would be contemplating if that news comes out. Ron, did I pique your interest in adding anything to the description?
I think you did a very good job, and a lot of the concepts are pretty much ironed out as far as what we would be considering. And I would encourage, as Representative said, that if you have any questions, take a look online, give us a call, and if there's something missing, timelines are pretty short, but we want to hear about it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I have some questions from the panel, and then I'd also like to open up to questions from the audience as well for the representatives while we still have you here. But I want to acknowledge that both Representative Gomberg and Representative Noble have been really, really good to work with and very, very communicative with me regularly, as has State Senator Ryan Lewis. And I've really appreciated all of their work in keeping me up to date. I'm swimming in the information, but I really appreciate it. So thank you. Okay, question from Chamber of Commerce, and that is there any possibility of including emergency funds or economic response funds to 501c6, I believe, yes, 501c6s through the state? And that comes out of the need to have chambers of commerce, which are structured as 501c6s, doing a lot more work these days than they're really scaled for. So, representatives.
Well, you know, I first came to the coast to manage the Chamber of Commerce here in Lincoln City, so I understand the question. I don't have a good answer. I don't recall seeing that in the list of proposals. Representative Noble will help me out here, because my sense is that they are coming at it from a little broader perspective and not getting that deep into specifics. Did you see anything about 501c6s?
No, David, I haven't. I do know, at least, as you mentioned, 2 different caucuses, so hopefully we're getting the same information, but we're operating on the assumption that this first special session will deal with emergent issues, but that we would probably have several special sessions to get us through. I know there were some topics discussed in the joint committee that have been set aside for future consideration in future special sessions. So this is one that I've written down to consider, and that's why, you know, even though it appears that this is a package for this potentially upcoming special session, we really do want to hear your ideas, because there will be probably more opportunities to get together to work on the benefit, or on your benefit.
Thank you. If I could follow on, thank you, Representatives Gomberg and Noble, for being on our call. The nature of that question not only affects chambers of commerce around the state and nationally, but it also affects several of our economic partner organizations, including SEDCOR. On this call, our downtown coalitions or downtown associations, our DMOs, including Visit Newburgh and Visit McMinnville. And so really this is far-reaching impact. We're currently precluded from any federal sources of funding because of our C6 title and because of our C6 formation. So even while we're on the front lines of economic response, recovery, and reconstruction, we're precluded from the packages that we're bringing to our businesses, and yet we still operate as a business for business. And again, not just chambers, but several others. So I really appreciate your advocacy. We're not able to make progress federally, so having attention at the state at least gives Oregon the advantage of serving our businesses firsthand. Thank you.
Well, the representative mentioned that we're going to be having additional sessions, on all likelihood, and that's an important point. But I also want to go back to what I mentioned a few minutes ago, and that is that if the current package moves forward, it includes some flexibility in the use of transient lodging dollars, and those might be available to organizations like the ones you're describing to provide some targeted local support.
Is there concern, however, that with the complete decline in travel, tourism, and hospitality, that TLT funds will actually be so greatly diminished that they won't be available for even their initial purposes?
Well, I think your point's well taken. We're certainly going to get a significant drop right now in lodging income, but different jurisdictions have different amounts of money already on hand. And to give you one example, over in Tillamook County, they have $3 million in the bank. They were intending to give most of it away in grants. They're now redirecting those dollars and holding them for other purposes. And I don't know what the situation is in Yamhill County, but it seems that there may be options and using those dollars as flexibly as possible.
And we're definitely, oh, sorry.
I just said thank you.
Jody Christensen and the Mid-Valley Economic Response Team is definitely following the reduction in TLT and money to organizations like Travel Oregon. So, and I have one comment from Abhisha about asking about the best mechanism for providing input to the two of you and other legislative delegations prior to a special session. But before you tackle that one, I got a request from Commissioner Sterrett that you be aware of the comments that we as Board of Commissioners sent to the governor about the possibility, like it's a long list of comments that were directed at a potential response, economic response during a special session. Sorry, that took a while, but I believe that she has now forwarded those comments on to you. So, but we want to make sure that you know about them.
We've seen them, or I've seen them.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay, great. Confirmation. Okay, and then back to what is the best mechanism for providing input prior to a special session?
Ron, do you want to go first?
Contact me directly, either email or phone call. And if you don't have those, I'd be happy to give you my cell number to get information back and forth. And as I think both of us sit on the Mid-Valley Economic Recovery team as well, so feel free to let me know any ideas, any thoughts you have.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that. We are swamped right now, and I'll remind you that we have each one staff person assisting us during this unique period of time. But particularly at the county level and you mayors, I would encourage you just to grab the cell phone and reach out to us directly, or text us and say, let me know when you got 5 minutes free, because I had 5 conference calls yesterday. I'm sure Representative Noble is in pretty much the same boat. And so we are working round the clock here, but schedule some time. Let's get on the phone and figure out the next necessary steps.
All right, my next question is from Miriam Vargas Corona, who is the Executive Director of Unidos Bridging Communities based out of McMinnville. And I'm going to read it because it's a longer one. I don't want to try to summarize. And she says, one issue that Unidos Bridging Communities is working on right now is access to financial relief for Oregonians that cannot access public benefits. Over 70,000 Oregonian immigrants fall under classifications that make them ineligible for unemployment insurance. For instance, oh no. I'm sorry. For instance, many Oregonians operate as independent contractors, or I'm sorry that I'm trying to, and she's concerned about them falling through the cracks during the current pandemic. And she says financial relief is especially important for Yamhill County workers, such as farm workers, vineyard workers, and restaurant workers. Will Representative Gomberg and Representative Noble support the Oregon Worker Relief Fund? And you may need to follow up Miriam and representatives to give them more information on that. But floor to you, representatives.
Well, short answer, yes. There are a variety of new resources coming together to try and ensure that nobody falls through the cracks. I'm thinking particularly about the good work that Food Share is doing. You can go to their webpage and find a map of all of the food resources, enter your address, and you can say, is there a help within 5 miles, 10 miles, or 15 miles? And it'll give you the different locations. So there's a lot of...
Okay, I found this on the web for help.
I'm sorry, my phone heard a word there that it thought was asking it a question. Has that ever happened to you guys? In any event, there's a lot of resources coming together, and there's something that I really want to stress that I think all of us need to take note of, and that is so many people stepping up now to help each other, to help their neighbors and their communities, whether it's delivering a hot meal or picking up groceries or prescriptions. I see businesses that used to make spirits and now are making hand sanitizer. I see sewing clubs that are making face masks for hospitals. I've got a small business here that's turned their 3D printer into a device for making face shields. So many people doing so many remarkable things to ensure that nobody falls through the crack, and we need to empower and recognize and reward those efforts. Miriam, I don't know that that's a direct answer to the question that you were asking about legislation and state action, but there are tools in place both through the state and otherwise. And I guess part of the answer here is the government's doing extraordinary things. They are expanding unemployment eligibility. They're sending checks to people. They're providing grants and forgivable loans. But it's not just about government. It's also about local businesses, local organizations like so many of you are involved with, and neighbors helping neighbors. We're all in this together. So I think that has to be part of our message as well.
I would agree, Miriam, and just to add in, the question you're asking, that message has been talked about, at least in my conference calls, several of my conference calls with my caucus and other members and community members. We have people and who are hurting, food, jobs, just the insecurity and the fear and apprehension, anxiety of what's going on, as the senator said, with our economic implosion, the health crisis, and we need to ensure that the solutions we come up with address all people here in the state of Oregon, in our communities. So your question is not lost. It actually comes up fairly often, and I think it'd be safe to say, and I don't want to speak for Dave Gomberg, but I think it'd be safe to say that we're both on the same page in ensuring that we're fighting for all people that in our communities, not just some people in our communities.
And along those lines, as a follow-up, thank you, by the way. Thank you for the question and thank you for the answers. The economic response team, recovery team, at our conference call at 3:30, that is going to be the roundtable discussion. So is how to catch people who are falling through the cracks of our current system. And I think that's an ongoing conversation. So thank you for adding that. Before we move on, I don't see any more questions from audience or panelists for the representatives, but before we move on, I also wanted to highlight a comment from Senator Boquist. I'm going to do a little bit of a summary because, yeah, and he says that he really wants to make sure that people know that they need to be following the policy around staying in small groups and having social distancing as the new norm for the near future, as well as making sure that local businesses and small businesses and communities stay in operation as much as possible. And I wanted to make sure that you all knew that he was communicating that, and that he really, really stands by the social distancing and stay at home, while also acknowledging that our businesses need to be able to operate. So I think I really appreciate his messages. Unless representatives have anything else, I'd like to move on to other folks on the panel now. Good, okay. Commissioner Olson, since you've been waiting so patiently, do you have anything to add both to the group and also for the general public? Because there's a lot of folks watching out in the community.
Thanks, Casey. Can you hear me and see me okay? Okay, what I've been doing the last about 3 weeks is keeping up every morning. As far as the COVID-19, I've been keeping up on how it impacts businesses. And I'm about 3/4 the way done putting together a document that getting information from Senator Merkley's office and Senator Noble's office and from the state legislature and regional solutions and SEDCOR. I'm trying to capsulate that all into one particular document. And hopefully by our next conference call, that document will be done that I'll be able to share. So I've had a lot of concerns with people in the smaller cities and also in McMinnville about they just don't have the capacity to go out and look at what everything is available. And they're, of course, involved in just economic development. So I'm in the process of putting together a document that is for economic development during the virus and for the economic recovery.
And
that's about it.
Okay, panelists, if you or audience, if you have questions for Commissioner Olson, you can send them to me and I can bring them up as necessary. The economic development and business folks who are on the line would really like to hear from Stacy if they can before they share. So if it's all right, we'll move on to Stacy now.
Oh, to me?
They wanted to make sure that you got the first crack at things like the CARES Act.
Oh, okay. I was just going to let Senator Merkley give some talking points, so I didn't prepare anything. Sorry.
Okay, that's
I appreciate it.
Well, then let's move on to Shannon Buckmaster, and we'll go to Abhishek Stone immediately after that.
Hi, thank you. And we did get a really great update from Senator Merkley. I appreciate him being on. Thank you also to Stacy for being on and just all the support that we've had from all of our federal representatives and their staff members, and of course to our representatives here. And thank you, Casey, Commissioner Kulla, for continuing to coordinate these informational sessions, but also I think problem solving together as a region. So thank you. Just a couple updates from where we are in the city of Newburgh. And of course, any of these ideas we're willing to share openly and freely with our neighboring communities, because we really want to take what works here and pass it on in other capacities. The city of Newburgh is actually pulling together an emergency relief fund focused on our particular small businesses as a way to fill in some of those gaps for where we're not seeing emergency funding for all of our businesses through the federal programs or with the state process as well. So what I'm authorized to share right now on behalf of the new city manager, Dan Weinheimer, we're looking at pulling together $100,000 from the general fund at the city of Newburgh, offering grants of up to $2,500 per business. So that could serve up to 40 businesses. Our eligibility, really looking for the greatest impact with limited resources, right? Because none of us were planning for this particular situation, so we're pulling from existing budgets. We're looking at prioritizing or requiring that Newburgh's, the businesses for this set of money has a Newburgh address, employ 15 people or fewer, and that's a full-time equivalency. So some of the restaurants or smaller businesses that have several part-time would still be considered. Have a current Newburgh business license in good standing, have operated for more than a year, and are locally owned and not a franchise or a larger corporate brand. Funds would be available on a first come first served basis, and they're looking at a way of prioritizing minority-owned business, including women-owned business, non-native English-speaking businesses. So looking at filling some of those gaps for our community. We also had a humble but positive response to our essential services worker childcare program, which is a combined program. It's being housed at the Newburgh School District on site at their school buildings, but it's technically independently operated through Chehanan Park and Rec Department. There were 2 enrollments, so we have plenty of spaces. It's set up currently to operate 3 mods of 10 participants, so 10 kids. And this is kids of all ages, I believe. Let's see some of the details. And it is a pay model based on what CPRD was already operating. So that might be a barrier if we want to look at pulling together resources to subsidize funding for emergency or essential service worker opportunities as well. So it's $47 a day, $99 a week for part-time up to 19 hours, $125 per week for 20 hours or more, a full-time worker. I know I had written down the information, but we can get that out. I want to make sure that I'm efficient with our time. I also do want to mention that Joya Goodrum, the CEO of the McMinnville Chamber of Commerce, and I are co-hosting an informational session Thursday afternoon. We'll have details coming out. This will be an open presentation forum followed by Q&A on Thursday, April 2nd, 12:15. It'll be a Zoom conference call, and we will have Chris Eiler from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce explaining both programs, and not only what the differences are with the program, but how we expect they'll combine in ways that are fortuitous for our businesses, or combined in a way that makes sense so that you're not overlapping funds, you're being smart about which opportunities you accept and how you manage those resources. With that, I'll open to questions or defer to Abisha Stone at SEDCOR.
And I'd just like to highlight, thank you, Shannon, that Abisha has asked, but she can ask again a question. So feel free to provide the conversation. All right, thank you very much, Shannon.
So would you like me to respond to the question there?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and ask it. So sorry, I had typed it in.
Okay.
So Shannon, are you looking for, or I should say, is the CPRD Newburgh School District childcare program looking for business partners?
Not, it's to my understanding that they're not looking for childcare providers in that regard. So if a business has already opted out of not providing essential services through the application process, then that would not be it. But we are still looking for childcare opportunities for our essential services workers. So right now we have 30 open spots. 2 of them were filled yesterday. I haven't yet heard of today, but we have an immediate 28 openings at those rates through CPRD. And of course, the priority is for Newburgh businesses because the burden is falling on our community. But again, the services are there, the program is there, and we're working together originally as a team. So it's really important to make sure that if they've taken the time, care, concern to set this up, that it's being utilized to their capacity. And we have the ability to increase those mods or those groups. So we can add more groups of 10 as needed. So not on service providers, but yes, looking for those essential workers right now whose childcare providers have either closed down at the most recent executive order or are changing their work environment as commuting schedules or location shifts. I mean, really the workplace right now is a crazy place to be. So we are looking for those kind of business partners. Does that answer your question, Abisha?
It does, yes. I was referring to the latter of those 2 options. So thank you for clarifying, but I'll follow up with you in regards to that.
Okay, and you can register for those services online at CPRD's website. So it's a really simple process to get in there, and you simply list what your essential service is that you're providing, and that puts you in priority. So that if we reach the maximum for the program, we have a clear pathway set by the governor's standards actually on what those services that would be prioritized.
Okay,
Great, thank you. And one of the reasons I ask is, so I'll kind of give the report here. Again, I'm Abisha Stone with SEDCOR. I'm the Regional Economic Development Manager for SEDCOR serving Yamhill County. And so the reason I ask is we have a lot of essential businesses, traded sector partners who their main concern and the things I'm hearing from them is how do they support their employees through this? So managing social distancing, managing spacing people on lines, trying to give them access to resources such as childcare. And so I'm curious from anyone in the panel here if other communities are doing the same thing, taking this same approach so that we can follow up and make sure we're connecting those business partners, again, essential service providers, so that their staff can get access to these resources. Commissioner Kulla or Olson, are you aware of other communities building the same support program?
I'll go ahead in McMinnville, and I had a discussion yesterday that the school district is going through the same type of process here in McMinnville. Our essential employees don't have a need right now. The hospital, fire, police, those type they've got coverage. I've heard that with so many working from home, they've taken quite a few of their kids out of daycare. So we have additional capacity, even given the parameters of social distancing within the city. But at the same time, the school district is putting together a program that they can enact very quickly if indeed there arises a need. So Abisha, that's what I've heard. I didn't go too deep in depth in that because it was being run by the school district.
Thank you so much, Mayor Hill. As these programs emerge throughout the county, if you can forward that information to me from those individual communities or commissioners, that would be really helpful. And where I'm seeing this need is, again, more in the manufacturing realm for those essential service providers such as food manufacturing. So it's the line workers that are struggling with daycare issues. So I appreciate that follow-up, and thank you for opening that conversation, Shannon. So to go back to the traded sector update, really these are the sorts of questions that we're currently fielding. We do have a lot of our traded sector businesses, as I shared last week, who are very strong in operation still. Some of them are even more active right now than they had been in previous months, in part because they're serving emergency need. Some of the concerns that they have are a little bit more forward-looking. I think for our agricultural partners, one of their concerns is getting staffing for harvest. We'll see that play out in the next, 4 to 8 months, really. What's that going to look like and what would those impacts be? There's also a concern that once, to speak broadly, once the world starts gearing up again, what the demand on the supply chain will look like and how they'll all be able to meet those needs in unison. As I already asked our two representatives on the line, and thank you for jumping in on that, the question regarding support for gearing up to make essential equipment. And we're seeing a lot of our local manufacturers donating time and resources to the emergency relief effort. So we certainly want to make it as easy for them to do so as possible. Essentially, those are the main things that we're hearing from traded sector businesses, and we're talking at a county level and a regional level about how we might be able to approach providing the right type of access to funds or funds ourselves to support what the emerging needs are going to be in the next 3 to 4 months, the unforeseen need that we can certainly anticipate. Thank you, Commissioner.
Great, and Abisha and other panelists, Miriam has sent you all information about finding childcare providers through the 211 information line. And that might be, I think that's an important thing for folks to know who are listening and watching, is to call 211, and then you can do a keyword search with the number. And again, my screen is being funny. So the number would be text children to 898-211. So thank you very much for that information, Miriam. Abisha, unless there are other things, I'd also like to move on to Joya Goodrum from the City of McMinnville's Chamber of Commerce, unless you have more to add. Okay, great. And along those lines, I will bring the comments on childcare from manufacturers to the Mid-Valley Economic Response Team call in a couple hours. Thank you. Joya Goodrum, please join us. Maybe I can unmute her. apparently she is not. Okay. Well, until it looks like. Hello. Let's go on to Wendy Valise from PGE. Wendy, what would you like folks within the service area to know, and the elected officials and agency representatives here?
Thank you. Well, I think I shared a little bit last week. I just wanted to share a couple of other items because PGE is continuing to work on providing a critical service. Electricity has become very important, particularly for those that are homebound. I just want to provide a couple of updates from what I shared last week. Based on what we were hearing, and many people like Commissioner Kulla were part of the conversation with our president and CEO. PGE is making additional contributions in the community, one of which is a recent announcement, literally, I think over the weekend. I think weekends are definitely melting into our weekday now, but PGE has made a $50,000 donation to the Oregon Community Foundation Small Business Stabilization Fund. After we assessed, one, there's great need, but also we felt the OCF had a quicker vehicle to get the money out versus PGE trying to get it out. And then the other piece that I just want to raise awareness is we are hearing an increased level of scams right now. And so that would be a piece of information that I'd ask everybody to share, that I'm sure that PGE is not alone and that there are several happening right now, but just to make people aware that if they have any concerns or any questions, to feel free to call our customer service because we are hearing an increased level of scams happening and fraud because people are worried about their bill. I will say that for those of you who don't know, PGE is not disconnecting anybody. So if anybody calls and says we're disconnecting them, that is a scam or a fraud because we are not disconnecting anybody. And to call us directly or grab us online and we will work with them. But I think right now I'm getting the updates and that's concerning because we don't want people in all the worries that are happening in the world. We're not disconnecting anybody right now.
Okay, so if somebody gets a phone call that says they're from PGE, what should they do? Really clear.
They should say, I will, if this is accurate, I will for them to hang up and call our number directly. Because most often those scammers will hang up immediately. Okay,
perfect. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Yes.
One more thing, Casey, if I could just say,
please.
And I appreciate these updates. We will be looking at, and we're meeting this afternoon. Of course, every day, every hour is changing, but PGE in order to maintain distance for our employees that are on the crews, we are looking at putting our line crews on shifts. And so hopefully I'll get more information and I'll pass that along to all of the local governments so they know kind of how we're maintaining our service out there.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I would love to go to Joya Goodrum at the McMinnville Chamber, but I think I'm just working on this. I'm pretty sure she joined us as an audience member rather than a panelist. So apologies, but if she can hear us, which I think she can send me an email and I can at least read it to you all. So we'll figure it out. And Stacy has one breaking comment. So before we go on to mayors, go for it.
Thank you. We just got news that Secretary Mnuchin has promised to have the SBA Paycheck Protection Program up and running by Friday, April 3rd. So this Friday. So for anyone to apply. And he is promising same-day approval. So we will see, but that's what we're hearing right now.
Okay, and can you do the 30-second version of reminding us what the Paycheck Protection thing is?
Yeah, so it's to help pay for businesses overhead, 8 weeks of payroll, and just to basically funds to keep your business up and running so you don't have to lay people off. And I am going to, I can resend the one pager we have too, but we're updating to reflect what Mnuchin is saying right now too. So
Okay, that sounds good. Nothing like having real news right at the moment. Thank
Right?
you very much. Okay, Mayor Hill, what would you like to tell people in the city of McMinnville and the panelists arrayed here?
Thank you, Casey. Since our Friday call, I just kind of want to update over the weekend a little bit. The one thing that I would like to do, I know those that are on the panel have access to this, but I'd like just to update from the Oregon Health Agency, the report as of Monday morning as to where we sit. As of Monday morning at 8 o'clock, we had 18 deaths in Oregon. We had 13,826 individuals that had been tested, with 690 that are positive. That is about a 4.7 percentile, and that's been staying about the same for the state as I've been tracking it. In Yamhill County, as of yesterday morning, we have had 3 deaths. We've had 422 tests with 16 that are positive. That puts us at 3.5, which our incidents are going down a little bit. In the state of the state of the 390, 154 of those individuals are hospitalized, which is about 23%. That's down 2% that we've been tracking last week. We have adult ICU beds, 280 that are available, non-ICU beds, 2,113. Then we have pediatric non-ICU, pediatric non-ICU beds of 85, and pediatric non-ICU beds of 203. That gives us, and we have about 750 ventilators that are not being used at this particular time. So again, that just does a real fast overview for those that don't have access to that information. That can all be seen on the Oregon Health Agency's webpage going to COVID-19, and it'll take anyone to that information if you're aware. A couple of things that we've been talking about at the city level that's kind of an update. We have been working with a group of individuals from YCAP, from the Gospel Rescue Mission and the city, looking at the feasibility of opening additional beds maybe at our community center. It's still in, we're talking, we've got all the people that are involved in that to help alleviate some of the needs. Right now we have 50 plus at the Gospel Rescue Mission. YCAP has their shelters, and we had 56, if I'm not mistaken, hotel vouchers that were out. So we're utilizing that program also. More to come, and we're talking we're doing a lot of talking and trying to put that together. The other piece is we just approved MAC Water and Light, and we're sending out as of March 31st, and the statement stuffers is McMinnville Water and Light. It's a handout, and it goes through our hours. We are open, but we've closed the office, and it tells how to get a hold of that. Is my water safe? Can the COVID-19 be transmitted through water? The answer is no. If I'm having problems paying my bill, we have suspended all disconnects for non-payment through May 16th. We've also are doing an act for the customers of customers helping customers, and McMinnville Water and Light will match $3 for every dollar that is given from our customers to help individuals that might need help. And that program is administered through St. Vincent's de Paul, and then all the many payment options that we might have available, and just bringing that to everyone's attention. Lastly, again, this is not with COVID-19, but this Thursday we're going to have an MWAC talking about transportation. And so some things are continuing down the path. So Rick and I will be a part of that conference call on Thursday. So, you know, my thought is, again, stay safe, social distancing, wash your hands, stay close to your home. This will help us. And I see that trend coming, inching down in Yamhill County, which is a great thing.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor. And we are getting close to the end of our time here, but we also have Mayor Kate from the city of Amity, who's joining us by phone only. And we have Miriam Vargas Carbona to give an update and to speak to her community. But Mayor Kate, would you like to go first? Okay, well, the mayor says that as his update, the mayor says that he now has one confirmed case in Amity, and they have a scheduled council meeting tomorrow and are going to use Zoom to get the meeting done. So taking a step towards the virtual meetings as well. All right, thank you very much, Mayor Cape. Miriam, what would you like to share with the community?
Well, I wanted to share with y'all that Unidos Bridging Community, one of our programs is a Latino Advocacy Coalition. So it's a monthly gathering of representatives. We have like over 30 representatives of the various organizations and agencies that provide social services. So I think my update is more for you all to let you know what we've been working on. I really appreciate bringing on folks to the panelists table that are working on economic development, but I just want to remind us all about the help that's still needed for individuals and households in our community. With our community partners that provide social services, we've now been meeting on a weekly basis via virtual meetings, and right now we've all needed to shift our work to essentially be resource navigators for our community members, individuals. Folks who are the most vulnerable in our communities. And I just want to let you know that we have, thanks to the McMinnville Public Library, have set up an online question submission hotline, essentially. So community members can send us their questions about resources that they're not finding, that they need information about. And the questions that we've mostly been receiving are about whether or not people are eligible for unemployment benefits, how to file, etc. And then also trying to figure out how they're going to pay the next month's rent. So those are the two biggest issues that we're receiving questions about. So we're essentially trying to educate ourselves about the different programs that are available to provide emergency assistance. There's a lot of information out there, but folks who have access to the internet, who know how to navigate the internet, are able to find this information. Otherwise, it's organizations like Unidos, the library, Head Start, etc., that are needing to become the resource navigators for the clients that we serve. So I just want to make sure that you all are also aware that nonprofits need some love right now, some support, because we're doing, we're the ones out there on the front lines trying to provide direct support to our most vulnerable community members. Just as we are listening to each panelist talk about their updates, again, I appreciate the support in the community for small business owners, but I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to have a Zoom call like this with panelists that are working in organizations that provide emergency assistance for individuals and households. YCAP has programs, St. Vincent de Paul, Love Inc., churches have programs. Unidos can talk about resources that we know. We're just seeing right now that given the stress of the situation, looking up resources can become really overwhelming. So as much as we can make it easy for families to find the information that they need to get by, to pay their bills, is really important right now. So I think that's the message that I want to share with you all. And you are all welcome to come and talk about some of the resources that you think would be important for social service providers to know about. We have our calls on Thursdays at 11. So please let me know if you'd like to be part of those.
That sounds great. Thank you very much, Miriam. Are there other questions from Miriam from the other panelists? Okay, and Miriam, I was on a call with Jody Christensen from the state earlier, and she mentioned that one of the things that YCAP is doing right now is that for food bank recipients, they're just asking for proof that you live in Yamhill County and nothing else. And I think that's a really important step to making sure that everybody has what they need and can access it. But thank you very much for those thoughts. I did get information from Joya, and so I'm going to read a few highlights real quickly before we go. And that is that the chamber has sent emails to all of their members about the SBA loans and employer information for the state employment department. And the chamber is hosting, as Shannon mentioned, a presentation on the SBA loan program. And the chamber has a website on business recovery. So go to the chamber and look for the business recovery link. And that's really the distilled essence. So to that end, are there any last questions or comments? Go ahead.
Casey.
Yes.
Just to let you know, and I don't know if this was talked about earlier, Yamhill County, in cooperation with Clackamas County, Washington County, and Multnomah County, have now put together a new COVID-19 data dashboard. And I can send you the link for it. I don't think they have it up on our website. Yeah, but what it allows you to do is to actually put the 4 counties together, but it also allows you to filter down. So if you're interested just in Yamhill County, you can filter down in Yamhill County. It shows the, let me see everything here. There it shows, it's by Wheaton County. It shows the number of cases. It shows the clinical data, hospitalization data, and lab data for everything reported in those 4 counties. Or again, you can filter down and only get Yamhill County if you want to.
Thank you very much for that.
So
yes.
If anybody wants that link, if they can just email me, and I will email them that link till it goes live on the website.
Okay. Thank you very much, Commissioner. And in closing, the link to the video here will be available through McMinnville Community Media, and I'll make sure that Phil there gets it to everyone. And I also just want to remind everyone to stay home and stay safe. And for those of you in the community who have to go out, please be safe, and we're thinking of you. So thank you very much to all of you, and we will see you on Friday.